Not only is episode 4 of Bocchi the Rock the first episode to begin with the full band lineup present, not only does it have two now famously meme-worthy bocce freak-out scenes, but as a music reviewer who is falling in love with this anime after living in Japan and basically ignoring anime for years, this is the first episode to really dive into the day-to-day activities of upcoming Japanese musicians. And having worked with so many unsigned artists in Japan, I have a lot to break down about this one, with a continuing ton of love also for how the characters are developing and the ever ongoing bocce storyline. So to really get to grips with episode 4, I've decided to focus on two key scenes that have a lot more going on in them than may even be clear on the surface, and really just show how awesome this series is and how knowing and deep the writing actually is as well. Firstly, we're going to start near the beginning with Nijika's band meeting, because the super enthusiastic Nijika calls the gathering with the specific remit of discussing how to make Kesoku band more, well, band-like. Although these kind of style and image discussions are probably common with any young group of musicians looking to make it big, they're treated as a vital and seriously considered aspect of the unsigned Japanese artist's world. I mean, I did a video specifically about this on my main channel where I spoke to a range of Japanese street musicians just to highlight the effort they invested in just the marketing of their artistic image. There's that knowledge that they need to stand out before anyone will even bat an ear at their music that seems to be something that's so key to Japanese artists, and they all know all too well. Probably a result of being in a country overflowing with young musicians where supply and demand is absolutely not on your side. However, back to the episode, and this meeting of Kesoku band also serves as our first moment to really see all four characters define their roles within the band dynamic. See, Nijika, seemingly as always, is the driving force kicking everything into gear. To this end, she prepped a sketch pad that will be incredibly familiar to anyone who's ever walked into a Japanese branch of Daiso or worked in a local school here, and she's ready to literally assign each band member their extracurricular administrative band role. Popular girl Kita is quickly established as the social media manager, referencing her extreme usage of an app that totally isn't Instagram. Way to dodge legal costs there. And this is a nice moment for Kita, because despite still learning to play guitar and working out singing at the same time, she finds herself active and excited throughout this entire meeting, just demonstrating that she's a massive asset to the image of the band, a quality which her musicianship will hopefully catch up with eventually. In a lot of ways, this reminded me of Miku from the popular Japanese band Bandmaid, which I'm sure many of you all heard of, who was herself, and still is, the powerhouse behind that act outward persona, but had to learn guitar herself in order to be a more useful part of the very band she created. Although Kita is not the founder of Kesoku band, it is clear that she is that outward face the band needs to relate to people. Next, Kesoku band's meeting takes a particularly amusing turn when the subject of merchandise comes up. See, Japanese unsigned acts again go hard on merchandising and making money. We already reviewed in the first 2 episodes how difficult it is just to break even on a live show, so Japanese artists take their music seriously but see it both as art and as a business. Buskers on the street will always have social media QRs, CDs and tickets on sale at all times, whilst a visit to a 20-person capacity live house show for a first-time performer will often yield the opportunity to buy signed photographs, t-shirts, posters, and often more bizarre tailored merch as well that the artist managed to drum up from somewhere. Thus, Kesoku band planning to sell zip tie bracelets, as per the band name, is a hilarious and very good idea. This kind of creative branding of useless items is a superb nod towards that desperate selling of anything for money, and to gain loyalty by clinging onto the audience after they've left the show. Ryo also starts to step up in this scene too and show why she's considered the experienced band leader in many ways, as she quickly deems the worthless zip ties sellable for 500 yen plain or 650 yen if signed by a band member. Ryo, hardly with a party image, then proceeds to suggest a fan club picnic once a year. And this may seem odd to foreign audiences, but the way that she rattles off this idea that she clearly has little personal interest in is a fantastic reference to the fact that actually annual picnic culture is a big thing in Japan. See, if you go to the park, especially Tokyo's Yoyogi Park, during any even slightly moderately warm month, and especially on a weekend, you'll see huge numbers of these picnicking groups. It can be fans of YouTubers coming to hang out with them, fans of musicians, regulars at a local bar. Yeah, I know a couple of bars actually do these where the waitresses and patrons attend a picnic together once a year. It could be members of a local art and painting club. I mean, you name it. The annual loyalty picnic is actually a massive thing in Japan and especially works for musicians who want to convince their fans to contribute that little bit of extra money whilst also feeling closer to the band. As Ryo even adds, guests can bring their own ingredients. Ryo's cold and calculated response to everything is constantly funny throughout this meeting, as it's kind of hard to tell what the balance is between her genuinely finding everything tiresome and simply just acting aloof to maintain her cool, distant persona. By contrast, however, during the band meeting, Kita's over-enthusiastic responses to every suggestion are not just a showcase of her own bubbly character, but also a mirror of the obsessive fans that even the smallest Japanese artists can quickly find following their every move. Whether it be those who want to be the first on the scene of what they believe will be the next big thing, or just fans who prefer smaller artists who'll notice them as a fan and interact with them on occasion, startup artists can attract very passionate fans very quickly and also then shift merchandise of almost any kind to these followers who are attempting to cement their fandom with the new act. However, in this meeting, whilst Kita's personality is spilling out all around the room, she tries to enthusiastically bring Bocchi into the band image conversation, causing Bocchi to begin panicking at her lack of ideas on the more extroverted subject matter. Whereas Kita is struggling in the music room but unstoppable in the social arena, Bocchi is again the diametric opposite. Happy alone with a guitar in a small space, but destroyed by even the slightest exposure to the attention of others. Therefore, at this moment, Nijika seemingly saves Bocchi from the whirlwind of Kita's enthusiasm by saying that Bocchi's role is to write lyrics, an introverted task that we will follow up on a little bit later. So, apart from beautifully giving us a look into the self-marketing strategies that are such a signature of a Japanese unsigned band, this scene starts the episode by establishing the band dynamic as well. We know that Nijika will instigate the band's progressions, and Ryo will be the wise pair of hands to take ideas and flesh them out, however cynical her knowledge of the music scene and its workings may be. Kita will be the face of the band, the likeable and less controllable force of chaos that makes everything fun, whilst Hitori is basically assigned to be the band's heart, which brings us on to the second pivotal scene, and honestly, a perfect piece of writing. But before I talk about that, I will address the much more popular scene that comes before it. Yes, the band photo scenes. See, it was great fun to see them exploring their dynamic, as well as the photo traced scenes of real-life Shimokitazawa that they walk around, all adding colour to the bocce world. Mostly these scenes do play out for some good old-fashioned laughs and give the band a chance to develop their on-screen relationship in a more natural surrounding than the basement dwelling of Starry, so it is a great scene, but mostly just sort of logically expands upon the band meeting scene that came before. There was also that really fun and kind of signature scene where they attempt to get a band photograph, and it was a rather on-the-nose way of showing the individual members' characters, and the eventual decision to simply have the band all just simultaneously jump for the photograph to avoid the complications of choosing poses is another kind of nice nod to current trends. I mean, seriously, go to any Japanese landmark or Instagram-friendly location and try to make it 10 minutes without seeing a group of Japanese girls simultaneously jump in front of a tripoded phone camera. I mean, I guess it really is kind of easier than posing, given that everyone looks equally weird when jumping. I mean, I can't deny there is less pressure to look normal when you're fighting against gravity, although even at this point, Ryo seems to have held her composure very well. But the next scene I really want to focus on is the cafe meeting. Yeah, I know, you're starting to notice I talk about Ryo a lot. Simply, she is a fascinating character though, perhaps mostly to someone with my background. However, it's more in how she interacts with the other members of the band that her personality is exposed, rather than any direct statements. This cafe meeting scene between her and Bocchi is a huge character development moment for them both, but to understand why, we need to look at what it's built on. So let's go back to Hitori's task, which, up until this point, has been to write the lyrics for a song. I'm sure that every songwriter watching this was both laughing and cringing with how relatable her initial attempts to pen band lyrics were. See, after first being struck by writer's block, Bocchi then scours through old notebooks for inspiration, only to find a confusing bunch of half-completed ideas with oddly dark emotional tones that maybe felt right at the time, but now seem embarrassing when seriously considered for public consumption. Following this realization, she starts to focus on writing a less embarrassing set of lyrics that would probably suit lead singer Kita's character more aptly, and win over audiences with a feel-good and relatable vibe. Although Bocchi becomes confident that this is the route towards a more successful song that'll also make her bandmates more happy and comfortable, she realises how it only kind of serves to highlight how the feelings she would actually like to express musically are at odds with her desire to be a beloved musician. She therefore proceeds to write what she feels is best for the band, sacrificing her own messages maybe for the greater, if faker, good. This is a place that almost any lyric writer will have been at some point, and it sits in the back of your mind, eating away at you, asking, is this really what you want to say? Or are you just concerned what people will think? Given her conflicted feelings about the lyrics she's now written, Hitori sits alone and tragically ponders if the others will laugh at what she's actually written. Even with her newfound musical family, Bocchi's still scared to expose any of her heart to them through fear she could lose their respect. This is one of those truly touching Bocchi the Rock moments, but mostly because of what she then chooses to do next. Given the choice of talking to the encouragingly positive Nijika about this, or the always bright and complimentary Kita, Bocchi decides instead to ask for the ever cold and aloof Ryo's advice, as this could only ever lead to brutal honesty. It's that desire to not be humoured and therefore be confident in the validity of the judgment that she hears that is the comfort that she's really looking for. And so, we step into an odd but character-defining scene. Despite the two meeting in a nice cafe, there's basically no initial chemistry, and Bocchi even suddenly realises that she's never actually been alone with Ryo before. See, Bocchi doesn't know how to spark up a conversation, feeling awkward in the now prevailing silence, but Ryo is content to not interact until she's finished her food and is ready to read the lyrics that have been brought to her. There's a sense that she is perhaps more enjoying feeding her own mysterious ego by knowingly taking advantage of Bocchi's inability to start the conversation under her own power. Or maybe Ryo is just simply enjoying the lack of small talk that she endures with the others all the rest of the time. However, when she does eventually request to see the lyrics, what follows is a presentation of advice that goes beyond just critiquing and reviewing the words on the page. On the surface, Ryo simply observes that, as Bocchi feared, the lyrics appear to pander to a generic, undefined audience, and suggests that she goes back and rewrites them again from the heart. Ryo then goes on to further explain that she'd left her previous band for this exact kind of veering into generic crowd-pleasing pop motifs. And here we see a subtle point. Not just that Ryo recognises that Bocchi has something deeper to say, but that Ryo also didn't leave her previous band just to be edgy. She left the band because she recognised the futility in just simply doing whatever the current popular thing is. This leads to her making two astute points. The first, and perhaps slightly more emo-sounding one, is that to abandon what makes you unique is the death of the artistic self. This point may seem like the obvious epiphany of someone who has to blow the floppy black fringe from their eyes every time they talk, but as I mentioned earlier about the difficulty of writing lyrics, the artist's hardest choice can sometimes be the one of defining yourself. Every artist has to take some inspiration from what came before, but only really to inform their own self-expression, with plagiarism truly being the worst crime of an artist. it can be genuinely hard to be unique when you know that what you desire is something so different from what is popular as well. However, it's that knowledge that the easier path is full of people pushing against that one door to become famous, while the harder path is a less clearly defined but more noteworthy journey that makes this such great advice. The second of Ryo's astute observations expands upon the first more philosophical musing by amusingly shaping it into a shrewd marketing strategy. When Bocchi questions how her darker lyrics would sound coming from the super joyful voice of Kita, Ryo simply points out the error in Bocchi's entire thought process up until this point, observing that the very contradiction she is describing is a potential selling point. An infectiously joyful voice spouting darkness and brooding introversions is both a unique marketing point and, well, rather funny. This reminded me of a couple of years ago when I did another video myself about the qualities that can turn a good band into a breakout band, and one of the key factors I highlighted was a juxtaposition of image, whether it be Baby Metal's metal riffs to pop dance moves, or band-made guitar solos in a maid's dress. An endearingly odd juxtaposition in your image will draw in interest, which then, if backed up by good quality product, will quickly enrapture fans who'll be eager to share their odd discovery of your unique output. Ryo manages to deliver this wise personal advice, artistic direction, and a marketing strategy, but at the same time while addressing Bocchi with a curious respect, never talking down to her. This is all paid off beautifully in a final scene where, after a sleepless night of work, Bocchi presents the all-new lyrics to the assembled band, and they look with interest at Bocchi's depressing lyrics before Nijika and Kita quickly express the kind of cautious positivity that she'd expected. But Bocchi is only really relieved when she hears Ryo respond that the lyrics feel honest. Not good or bad, just honest. At this declaration, Bocchi is finally happy with her work. She and Ryo both start giggling, and eventually that night she flops into her bed at home filled with a sort of inner joy. Whereas Kita's compliments were a welcome surprise to Bocchi in episode 3, the artistic respect of Ryo in episode 4 seems to have a much more profound effect on her. After this moment, though, the episode does then end with the ominous declaration that Hitori hopes the band never ends, as she looks at hundreds of prints of the band photograph that she's adorned her bedroom walls with. And oh yes, I'm getting full-on cop 2 days away from retirement showing a picture of his beautiful wife, kids, and newly bought dream beach house kind of vibes. I mean, yeah, it's all been great character development so far. It's all been about fun dynamics. They've only really had to battle their own inner demons up until this point, but it does seem that the signposts are saying something is about to go down. But that's a matter for episode 5. See, I said at the beginning that episode 4 was the first to have the band start the episode as a band, and it really did quickly cover so much ground off the back of this, showing fun and amusing insights into the very real world of newcomer bands, carving out roles for its ever-developing characters, and delivering a barrage of laughs along the way. So for now, there's little more to say than that Bocchi the Rock is a winning formula and continuing joy. So, 4 down, 8 to go. See you soon.